On my 18th birthday, instead of balloons or cake, my adoptive parents gave me a black trash bag filled with my clothes, and a truth that shattered my entire world. "We only adopted you for the government checks," my mom said flatly, tapping a calculator like she was closing a business deal instead of ending a childhood. $1, $500 a month, Ethan. You've been a steady income stream, but now that you're 18, the payments stop. Before I tell you my complete story, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. My name is Ethan Cole, or at least, that's what I've believed for 18 years. The woman across the kitchen table, the one who just turned my life into an accounting report, is Diane Cole, 51 years old, a bank clerk who values order, money, and control. The man sitting beside her, Mark Cole, is my adoptive father, a quiet warehouse manager who taught me how to fix car engines but never how to believe in myself. "This is a joke, right?" I asked, my throat burning. "You're saying this to me today? On my birthday?" Mark stared at the floor, avoiding my eyes like he always did when the truth got uncomfortable. "The adoption subsidy ends when you turn 18, he said slowly. "That was always the arrangement." "The arrangement?" My voice cracked. "I'm your son, not some business deal." Diane's gray eyes flicked up from the calculator. "No, Ethan. You were a ward of the state we agreed to care for. We've met every requirement: food, shelter, education. The contract is complete." She stood up and walked toward the corner, grabbing a garbage bag resting against the white wall. "Your personal items are in here. Anything we bought stays. You have until noon to leave." 18 years. 18 years in this house. Every Christmas, every scraped knee, every dinner at this same kitchen table, all reduced to a checklist. Mark finally spoke up, voice soft. Maybe he can stay for a few days, Diane." She turned that cold stare on him, the one that could freeze the air in a room. "We can't afford sentimentality, Mark. The mortgage is due tomorrow. The sooner we rent out his room, the better. Someone's already coming to see it this afternoon." "You're renting out my room?" I asked, my hands shaking. "It was never your room," she said simply. "It was a state-funded space." I felt something crack inside me. I looked around the kitchen, the same room where I'd celebrated birthdays with store-brand cake and no candles, where I'd begged them to come to my football games and they'd said, "Gas is too expensive." And now, this same room was where they were evicting me like unwanted furniture. "I have nowhere to go," I whispered. "I've got $40 to my name. Where am I supposed to live?" Diane, ever prepared, opened a manila folder and slid a printed pamphlet across the table. "There's a shelter downtown. They take adults over 18. I highlighted the address. I stared at the paper. A homeless shelter. My mother, the woman who'd tucked me into bed when I was sick, had planned this eviction down to the last detail. "Just give me a week," I begged. "Please. I'll pay rent. I'll figure it out." "With what?" she asked coolly. "Your part-time job at the repair shop? Minimum wage won't cover rent." She wasn't wrong, she was never wrong about numbers. But somewhere in her arithmetic, she'd subtracted humanity. Mark stood, keys jingling in his hand. "Good luck, Ethan," he mumbled, and walked out. The sound of his old pickup starting in the driveway was like the closing of a chapter I'd never written. "The clock's ticking," Diane said without looking up. "I'll be locking the doors when I leave at 11:30. I lifted the garbage bag, it weighed almost nothing. 18 years of life reduced to one plastic bag. Inside were my clothes, a toothbrush, a few paperbacks, and the cheap watch my boss had given me for Christmas. Nothing from them. No photos, no keepsakes, nothing to prove I had ever been loved. "Was I ever anything to you?" I asked quietly. "Even for a moment?" She finally looked at me, and for one heartbeat, I thought I saw something like regret. But then, she checked her watch. "You were a responsibility we fulfilled," she said simply. "That's enough." It wasn't. It would never be. I walked out of that house at noon sharp, just as she'd scheduled, carrying my garbage bag, $47 in my wallet, and a lifetime's worth of questions I'd never get answered. Growing up in the Cole household just outside Fort Worth, Texas, never felt special, but I always told myself that's what normal looked like: quiet dinners, polite silences, and a love that never quite felt real. Diane called it discipline. I called it distance. She'd introduce me to coworkers as Ethan, our adopted son, saying adopted like a disclaimer, like she was warning them not to assume too much. Mark never corrected her, he'd just nod, half smiling behind his coffee cup. They'd taken me in when I was 3 months old. The state file said my birth mother couldn't care for me, and that my birth father's identity was unknown. Diane kept all the paperwork in a locked cabinet in her bedroom. I saw it once when I was 10, she shut it fast, saying, "That's private." Our house was beige, lifeless, like someone pressed pause on it 20 years ago. Beige carpet. Beige walls. Beige furniture. Diane believed color was a wasteful distraction. Every dollar had to earn its keep: off-brand groceries, coupons stacked by expiration date, water heaters turned off during the day. Efficiency builds character, she'd say. Mark was handier. He taught me to change oil, patch drywall, fix leaks, things that made me feel useful, even if never loved. But he never let me near his 1970 Camaro. Too valuable, he'd say. It was a rule, like everything else in that house. The basement was off limits too. Sometimes I'd hear Diane's muffled voice down there late at night, talking in numbers. As a kid, I thought she worked remotely for the bank. Now I know she was probably counting the subsidy payments that came with keeping me. School was the only place I could breathe. I wasn't popular, just that quiet kid who helped fix everyone's car for gas money. Teachers liked me because I didn't cause problems. Friends? I had a few, the kind you eat lunch with but never invite home because home didn't feel like one. When I turned 16, I started working at Miller's Auto Garage. Old man Miller was 72, a retired Navy mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart bigger than anyone I knew. "You've got a calm touch," he'd say. "Don't let the world harden you, kid." I worked 30 hours a week after school, saving every dime for community college. But even then, Diane found a way to collect her share. 50 for utilities, she said. 30 for household wear and tear. 25 for administrative time. She actually wrote it down in a ledger. I bought my own clothes from thrift stores. Paid for my phone plan. Bought my own food sometimes. Diane said it taught independence. Mark said nothing, as usual. We had exactly 3 family photos in the whole house, one from a wedding, one school picture, one at the DMV when I got my license. They were all tucked in a drawer, not displayed. The walls had only store-bought art, the kind you buy in bulk. Dinner was clockwork. 6 sharp. Meatloaf on Mondays, soup on Tuesdays, leftovers on Wednesdays. Diane had a rotation designed to maximize every dollar. We ate in silence, the local news filling the air. When I was 14, I made the mistake of asking about my biological parents. Diane froze mid-bite. "They couldn't care for you. We could. That's all that matters." Mark added softly, "Don't dig into the past, son." It was one of the few times he'd ever called me son. Birthdays were acknowledged but never celebrated. A generic card signed Diane and Mark Cole. Christmas gifts were functional: socks, notebooks, a calculator. The tree came down on December 26th, no matter what. For years, I believed all families were like that, cold, mechanical, dutiful. But after what happened that morning, I saw everything differently. Every memory, the quiet dinners, the clipped words, the hidden papers, they all made sense now. It wasn't parenting. It was bookkeeping. That morning, Diane had laid everything out on the kitchen table: spreadsheets, state forms, tax statements. "Sit down, Ethan," she said without looking up. "We need to finalize something." She tapped a paper with her pen. "Now that you're 18, the checks stop." "What checks?" I asked. Mark shifted in his chair. "The adoption subsidy. $1,500 a month." That number echoed in my skull. $1,500. Every month. 18 years. They'd made over $324,000 raising me, and never once told me why I was really there. "We provided everything required by law," Diane said. "Food, clothing, shelter. Education through the public system. The contract is complete." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "This isn't a contract," I said, voice shaking. "This is my life." "The garbage bag has your belongings," she replied calmly. "Leave your key on the counter and the garage remote too. Oh, and the copy you made, I know about that." Of course she did. Diane knew everything, except love. I dropped into the same chair I'd eaten in for 18 years. "Why are you doing this?" She sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "You're an adult. Keeping you complicates taxes. You're a liability now, not an asset." I didn't even realize I'd fallen to my knees until my palms hit the floor. "Please," I said, humiliated. "Just give me a month. I'll work full-time, pay rent, whatever you want." She glanced at the wall clock. "It's 9:47. You have until noon." I waited, for her to crack, for Mark to say something, anything. But they didn't. Mark refilled his coffee. Diane adjusted her calculator. And I stayed there, kneeling on the linoleum, realizing I had never really been their son. 18 years of chores, school reports, part-time jobs, all to fulfill a transaction. They never loved me. They managed me. When I finally stood, my legs trembled. 18 years of calling you mom and dad, I said. Was it ever real? You were cared for, Diane replied coldly. Fed, clothed, educated. That's enough. What about love? She didn't even pause this time. Love doesn't pay bills. I packed what little I owned, half of it already sorted into what belonged to them. Even my baseball glove stayed. We paid for it, she said. As I left, I heard her on the phone. Yes, the room's available this afternoon, $450 a month, utilities included. She was already replacing me. Who were my real parents? I asked before walking out. Does it matter? She said, without looking up. They gave you up. We're just following through. Mark appeared from the hallway, slipping a $20 bill into my hand. For food, he mumbled. I took it. Not because I wanted it, but because it was all I had left of him. When the clock struck noon, Diane opened the door. Time's up, she said. I stepped out into the Texas heat, clutching my garbage bag. The door shut behind me with a click, the lock turning twice. For the first time in my life, I wasn't anyone's son. The first night after Diane and Mark kicked me out, I slept behind a Wendy's dumpster with my garbage bag for a pillow. The smell didn't bother me. The silence did. It was the first time I realized that silence can be louder than words, especially when it's filled with everything you wish someone had said. The shelter downtown wasn't much better. Crowded, loud, smelling of bleach and lost dreams. But it was a roof. I learned quick, shower early before the hot water ran out, guard your shoes, and never show fear. Fear gets you targeted. 3 months passed. 3 months of eating stale sandwiches, washing clothes in bathroom sinks, applying for jobs I'd never get. On good days, I sat on the steps of the Fort Worth Public Library, charging my phone off an outdoor outlet. On bad days, I just watched families walking by, parents holding their kids' hands, wondering what that felt like. Last Tuesday, June 20th, something changed. A man in a gray suit walked straight toward me. I tensed automatically. You learn fast on the streets that suits mean trouble. Cops, social workers, debt collectors. Ethan Cole, he asked. My body went rigid. Nobody had said my name in weeks. Who's asking? He reached into his jacket slowly, pulled out a sleek leather wallet, and showed me a badge. My name's David Morales. Private investigator. I've been looking for you for months. I frowned. Why? He sat down beside me, right there on the dirty steps, like I was worth sitting next to. That small gesture hit harder than I expected. I was hired by someone named Richard Brennan, he said. Your biological father. My stomach dropped. The words felt unreal, biological father. David continued gently, he's been searching for you since the day you were adopted. But, he hesitated. He passed away last week. Massive heart attack. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Someone had been looking for me. Someone had wanted me. And now, they were gone. David unlocked his tablet and turned it toward me. This is him, he said. On the screen was a man in his 40s, confident but kind-faced, standing in front of a building that read Brennan Energy Corporation. I stared at the picture, my reflection overlapping his. Same brown eyes. Same crooked nose. Same tired expression. It was like looking into a mirror that had lived a better life. He owned that? I asked, pointing at the building. Founded it, David said. Started with one oil rig. Built it into a $90 million empire. Never married, no other kids. You were his only child. I laughed bitterly. If he wanted me so bad, why'd he give me up? David swiped to an older photo, a young man barely 20, holding a newborn. He was 21. Your mother died during childbirth. Her name was Grace Turner. His parents told him he couldn't raise a baby alone. He signed the papers under pressure, but regretted it a week later. I felt my throat close up. A week? He tried to reverse the adoption, but you were already with the Coles. The state sealed the files. He spent 18 years trying to find you. David handed me a folder thick with papers. He hired 14 investigators over the years. I was the last one. He paused. And, Ethan, your adoptive parents knew. What? They were contacted multiple times. Letters, phone calls, even a personal visit. Each time, they threatened legal action. Restrained him through the courts. He offered them money, 10 times what the state paid, just for contact. They refused. I felt my blood boil. They knew? All this time? They knew, David said quietly. They chose the money. I sat there in shock, the world tilting beneath me. 18 years of lies. 18 years of being a paycheck instead of a son. While somewhere out there, my real father was searching for me, and dying before he could find me. What happens now? I asked. David stood. Now, you come with me. Mr. Brennan left instructions in his will. You're the sole heir. I almost laughed. I live in a homeless shelter. What could I possibly inherit? David's voice softened. Everything. His company, his estate, every asset he owned. He left it all to you. I didn't believe him, couldn't. I'd been scraping change for vending machine meals. And now someone was telling me I owned oil rigs and mansions? But something in his eyes told me this wasn't a scam. It was real. Too real. The drive to Dallas felt like stepping between two worlds. David's car smelled of leather and coffee, clean, controlled, safe. I stared out the window as the city skyline appeared, wondering what my father's life had been like, what kind of man builds an empire searching for someone who never knew he existed. He used to talk about you all the time, David said softly. He said, I don't need to know him to love him. I've loved him since the day I lost him. I turned away so he wouldn't see my eyes. Nobody had ever said they loved me before, not like that. Not even close. When we reached the law office, my hands were still shaking. 40th floor. Marble floors, glass walls, sunlight spilling everywhere. The kind of place I used to walk past without daring to look inside. A woman in a dark suit stood waiting. Mr. Cole, she said with a professional smile. I'm attorney Lydia Chen. Your father left specific instructions. There's a letter, and a key. She placed a sealed envelope in front of me, my father's name written across it in uneven handwriting. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were 3 handwritten pages and a small brass key. It began simply. My son, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it in time. I unfolded the letter carefully, the pages soft at the edges, the kind of paper that had been touched too many times by someone who never stopped hoping. My son, if you're reading this, then I failed to reach you in time. But at least you've been found. Your mother, Grace Turner, died bringing you into this world. You have her eyes. I was 21, scared, grieving, and surrounded by people who said I couldn't raise you alone. They promised you'd be better off with a stable family. I signed the adoption papers a week after the funeral. I've regretted it every day since. I stopped reading for a moment, my throat burning. Attorney Chen quietly pushed a box of tissues toward me. By the time I tried to reverse the adoption, it was too late. The state sealed your records. But I never stopped trying, Ethan. The key enclosed opens a private vault in Houston, under Brennan Holdings. Inside, you'll find what 18 years of searching looks like, every letter I wrote, every photo I collected, every birthday gift I bought but never got to give. I built everything I have, every rig, every office, every contract, with one goal, to find you. His handwriting grew sloppier near the end, as if time itself was running out. The fortune I'm leaving isn't a reward. It's an apology, the only language I had left to reach you. Inside that vault are answers, and maybe even the piece I never found. Your father, Richard Brennan. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the key. 18 years of love, trapped behind legal walls, now in my hands. Where's the vault? I asked quietly. David answered. Houston. I'll drive. The trip took 4 hours, but it felt like crossing galaxies. The closer we got, the heavier my chest felt, like each mile carried the weight of the years he spent searching. The building didn't look special, just another steel warehouse. But inside, past 3 security checkpoints, was a large room with his name on the door, Richard Brennan, Private Archive. When the heavy door opened, I couldn't move. It wasn't a vault of money. It was a vault of love. The walls were covered in files, photos, maps, thousands of documents. Private investigator reports. Age progression sketches. News clippings with circles around names that might have been mine. In the center of the room stood a long table covered in wrapped gifts, 18 of them, labeled by age. A red toy fire truck for age 4, every boy should have a truck. A baseball glove for age 9, I would have taught you to play catch. A set of car keys for age 16, your first car. A Mustang, just like your mom's. The car, a silver Mustang, was still in storage, David told me. He'd bought it the week I got my learner's permit. But what broke me wasn't the gifts. It was the letters. Hundreds of them, stacked neatly in binders, each one dated on my birthday. I picked one from when I was 13. Ethan. You're 13 today. I wonder if you like science. I loved physics at your age. I saw your school photo online, you look thoughtful, serious, like your mother when she was solving a problem. I hope someone is teaching you how to throw a baseball. I hope someone tells you they're proud of you. I am, even from afar. Tears blurred the words until I couldn't see them anymore. David stayed silent in the corner, giving me space to drown quietly in 18 years of missed birthdays. And then, at the bottom of one box, I found a folder labeled Cole Family, Failed Recovery Attempt. Inside were legal letters, email chains, and photographs. 3 years ago, Richard had found me. He'd hired lawyers to contact Diane and Mark. They'd refused. They claimed any interference would disrupt family stability. A highlighted email from Diane to his lawyer read, Mr. Brennan's persistence is distressing. Ethan is thriving in our care and doesn't need confusion from biological interference. Our monthly stipend is irrelevant to this matter. My stomach twisted. They'd lied to everyone, to him, to the court, to me. They'd stolen 18 years of love to protect a paycheck. At the bottom of the folder was a USB drive labeled, Final Message. David plugged it into his laptop. Richard's face appeared on screen, eyes tired but determined. The timestamp read March 12th, 2 days before my 18th birthday. Ethan, tomorrow I'm flying to Fort Worth. Vincent confirmed you'll be 18, finally free from the Coles custody. I've practiced what I'll say 100 times, but I'll probably just cry. I bought us a dinner reservation. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere with chocolate cake. I never got to see you blow out candles. I've saved 18 years of wishes, all the same one, bring my boy home. I love you, son. I'm coming for you. This time, nothing will stop me. He smiled, weakly, right before the video ended. He died 6 hours later, heart attack at his desk, my photo still in his hand. I sank to my knees, surrounded by unopened gifts, unread letters, and the ghost of a father who'd spent his life trying to reach me. Ms. Chen spoke softly behind me. Mr. Brennan's estate includes Brennan Energy, valued at $91 million. For fully paid homes, a private island, and several investments. All in your name. I didn't even react. It wasn't about the money. It was about the 18 years he tried to buy me time, and the 2 days fate refused to give him. I'm 19 now, the CEO of Brennan Energy. Some days, I still wake up expecting to hear Diane banging on my door, telling me to turn off the lights to save on electricity. Instead, I wake up in a house my real father built, the same house where he dreamed of bringing me home. His study is just as he left it. A cup with dried coffee stains. A pen beside a half-finished note on adoption reform. His glasses still rest on the nightstand, marking the last page he read before his heart gave out. I sit in that study often, reading his old letters, talking to him out loud like he can still hear me. I tell him about my day, the company, and the kids we've helped, because yes, that's what Brennan Energy became. One of the 4 mansions now houses foster teens who age out of the system, kids like me who turn 18 and have nowhere to go. The island he bought, the one he named Ethan's Key, remains untouched except for a small cottage. That's my place of quiet. When I miss him too much, I go there, sit on the dock he built, and fish with the rod he left for me. I never catch anything. But that's not the point. The point is, I'm finally home. David still works with me, but now his job is to find others, lost kids, lost parents. So far, we've reunited 12 families, mothers who never stopped searching, kids who thought no one ever cared. Last month, I watched a 17-year-old girl hug her biological mom for the first time. They both sobbed through dinner, barely touching their food. That's what my dad never got, but through us, his dream lives on. I visited Diane and Mark once, only once. They'd moved to a cramped apartment in East Dallas, peeling paint and broken blinds. When Diane opened the door, her expression didn't even flicker. "We gave you everything you needed," she said. "No," I replied, standing in the doorway in a tailored suit that probably cost more than their rent. "You gave me what the state paid you to give. Richard Brennan gave me everything you couldn't, love without a contract." Mark shuffled behind her, thinner, tired. "We heard about your inheritance," he said quietly. "Maybe you could help us out. We did raise you for 18 years. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt nothing, just the clean emptiness that comes after closure. "You raised me for $324,000, I said. "And you were paid in full." I turned and walked away before Diane could respond. That was the last time I saw them. The world calls what I inherited a fortune. But to me, it's 18 years of love stored in the only currency my father knew, determination. He turned oil into legacy, money into meaning. Now, that meaning lives on through the Brennan Foundation, which funds college tuition and safe housing for foster youth across Texas. We screen every family before adoption. The payments don't go to parents, they go into trust funds for the kids. I interview each family myself. I know the questions to ask. I know the lies to watch for. Because I've lived them. A few weeks ago, I got a crayon-written letter from a 7-year-old named Marcus, one of the boys we placed. "Thank you for my family. They read me stories every night. They say, 'I love you even when I'm bad.' They put my pictures on the wall." That letter sits on my father's desk beside his final note, 2 generations of love, one lost, one found. No amount of money can undo 18 years of emotional hunger or the 3 months I spent sleeping in shelters. But it can make sure no one else goes through it. My father once said he built his empire hoping its light would be bright enough for me to find my way home. He was right. The empire didn't just find me, it taught me what love actually means. Because love isn't a check. It's not a deal or a contract. Love is a man who spends 18 years searching for a son he never stopped loving, even when he couldn't find him. Love is hundreds of unopened gifts in a vault, waiting for a reunion that never came. Love is a father who built a company, a fortune, a legacy, just so one day, his son would know. He was never given up. He was always being found. Every time I sign my name now, I sign it Ethan Brennan, not Cole. Because I am my father's son. Not by blood alone, but by the love that refused to quit. Some nights, I dream of that birthday dinner he planned, the one with chocolate cake and 18 candles. In my dream, he makes it to Dallas. He walks in, sits across from me, and smiles like we've known each other forever. I tell him I forgive him. He tells me he's proud of me. We both cry over the cake. Then I wake up, in his house, living his dream, and realize something beautiful. He never got to say, "Welcome home, son." So now, every time a lost kid finds their family, I whisper it for him. "Welcome home, Dad. Your son made it." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video. And share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your comments mean the world to me and I read every single one. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that remind us all that love always finds a way, even when it takes 18 years and comes from beyond the grave. Thank you for listening to my story.